Hello everyone, my name is Giovanni Alcain, and today's video I'll be discussing to you about advanced philosophy of education, primarily focused on strategies for educating exceptional children and educational implication. Okay, so to begin with, let us know first the exceptional children. So what are those um, characteristics that the exceptional children have. So when we say exceptional children, are those students who need special education and related services in order to attain their full human potential. And special education because these students are notably or markedly different from other average students. So they have their exceptionalities. So this is not only limited to impaired hearing. So when we say impaired hearing, it is also defined as deafness. So hearing impairment that is so severe that a child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing with or without amplification. And the next one would be mental retardation. So mental retardation, or also known as MR, so refers to substantial limitations in present functioning. So it starts before the age of 18 and is characterized by significantly sub-average intellectual functioning. So this means that this student or child has below average intellectual capacity. The third would be emotional or behavioral disorders. So behavioral disorders involve a pattern of disruptive behaviors in children that last for at least 6 months and cause problems probably in school or at home or in social situation. And special gifts or talents, or commonly known as gifted child or child prodigy. So gifted child, it is a child who is naturally endowed with a high degree of general mental ability or extraordinary ability in a specific sphere of activity or knowledge. So this type of learners, we can consider this one as they're acting like as advanced students. Okay, they are more higher intellectual capability compared to the average students. When in fact, exceptional children, there's a lot of exceptional learners that we can name of, but I'm just choosing few of this one because it would be lengthy if lengthy discussion if we're going to include all of those. Okay, so the exceptionalities encountered by teachers most frequent are the followings. So this one would be learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I guess I don't need to discuss it further because it's already discussed in the previous videos about learning deficiencies, perhaps. So it would be redundant if I'm gonna discuss this one here again. So I'm just giving you the most common exceptionalities encountered by teachers and the intellectual disabilities, behavioral disorders, and physical disabilities and sensory impairments. So when in fact also there's a lot of exceptionalities that that the teacher may probably encounter, but I'm just limiting my presentation to this, and I'll be discussing you the two exceptionalities using the teaching strategies. So we're going to focus on intellectual disabilities and behavioral disorders. So I'll be presenting that on the next slide. Okay, so okay, teaching students with intellectual disabilities. So when we say intellectual disabilities, I've already discussed this one earlier. So let us know first the strategies that we're going to use. So first, give more time and practice than usual to students. So this means that if a student has only mild intellectual ability, he or she can learn important fundamentals of academic curriculum. So as a result, to the disability, the student may need more time to practice. So for instance, if you are a mathematics teacher, then you're teaching your students like 2 plus 3, then that's 5. So it would be difficult for the students with intellectual disability to grasp or understand the mathematical equation. For the students to understand further, we have to present concrete example. For instance, if I am the teacher, so I would provide concrete example by providing, for instance, 2 pencils plus 3 pencils that will make 5 pencils. Okay, so we really need have to exert, or we need more time for the students who have intellectual disabilities to cope up with the learning gap of that students. Okay, and embed activities into context of daily lives. So we have to embed activities into the context of daily life. We're not only teaching the students the what, which is the content or the subject matter, the how, we're using strategies on how we're going to impart that learning to our students, but also the why. The students would somehow ask, why I am learning this. So what's in it for me? So what's the significance of this one in learning this topic? Of course, for instance, if I am an English teacher or primarily like I am teaching literature, primarily focused on the plot structure of a short story. So plot structure of a short story composed of a series of events. Okay, so there's beginning, rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the denouement or the ending. Okay, so that's gonna be the series of events in the plot structure of a short story. Now, if we're a teacher, we're going to ask question to the students that they could relate of learning something in relation to their life. So we can ask question by asking to the students like, oh, so what's the relevance of learning plot structure of a short story in relation to our life? Since plot structure of a short story has a beginning and has an ending, and our life has a beginning and has an ending. But take note that the plot structure is being created by the imaginative mind of the author, where our life, who created our life. Okay? Even if we have a very hilarious beginning of our life, we can make what? A very memorable and victorious ending of our life. Okay? Because who created our life? Who is the director of our life? Who is the controller of the steering wheel of our life? So, with that sense, the students would somehow realize, ah, I am the controller of our life, my life rather, and I am the director of my life. Whatever the thing that I want to write on my life is depends on me. Okay, so that's gonna be the relation. We have to let our students um, know or realize why I am learning this, especially the students with intellectual disabilities. We really have to embed activities not only for the academic output of the students, but also in relation to the real life setting. All right, so the third one would be include the students in both social and academic activities. So this time, students with intellectual disabilities is ironically, or it's too ironic to the students. Uh, the, the teacher will ask them to join in certain academic activities. Okay, because as far as I'm concerned, I oftenly observe that most teachers they tend to choose students from the upper group, okay, from the upper group instead of choosing the lower group, okay, the achievers students. They choose achiever students. But this time, we have to do the ironic thing, especially if we have students with intellectual disabilities, okay? Because in academic activities or competition, it's not all about winning, all right? So at the onset, that we encourage our students, those low performing students in a certain academic activities or in social and academic activities, we already won the competition. Okay? We already won on that certain activities. Okay? Because again, as I've mentioned, academic activities or competition is not all about winning. Sometimes we need to lose to win on something different, something that is unique. Okay? Because we already won of our goals by letting that students participate or include that students on the social and academic activities. Right? I hope it makes sense to you. Now, teaching students with behavioral disorders. So, teaching students with behavioral disorders, this is something to do with the classroom management because behavioral disorders is somewhat related to disruptive behaviors. So, first, we have to identify circumstances that trigger inappropriate behaviors. Right? So, before we can rectify or give remedy to a certain behaviors that is inappropriate, we have to identify the root cause first. Okay, and we have to know also that some behavior, or we have to know also that the circumstances that trigger of the inappropriate behavior. So we have to identify. So what are those? So what are those factors? We have physiological effects. So when we say physiological effects, this is something to do with the theory of Abraham Maslow or Maslow about the hierarchy of needs. Okay, sometimes it may affect the student's behavior if the student is hungry. Okay, if the students not full when they are listening to a certain discussion of the class. Then physical features of the classroom. This is not only limited to ventilation, the lighting, the seating arrangement. So we have also to consider that in order not to trigger the behavioral disorders of our students. Then instructional choices or strategies that frustrate learnings. So of course, this is not limited to restricting students' choice unduly and giving instructions that are unclear. Of course, as a teacher, we have to give instructions that is clear and concise. We don't have to give vague instructions because it will affect the behavior of the students. And of course, choosing activities that are too difficult and too long. Of course, we have to think the appropriate activities that is suitable to the learning needs of our students. Giving too difficult and too long activities would frustrate the students and it may lead into lack of interest in learning. Okay? And also preventing students from asking questions when they need help. All right? So as a teacher, we have to provide a welcoming atmosphere to the students that are always willing to answer their questions. So that's it. Then the second one would be teaching interpersonal skills explicitly. So this is not limited to simple courtesies like by saying thank you, you're welcome. So In that situation, if we keep on teaching simple courtesies to our students without knowing it, we're doing it every day, that eventually becomes a habit. Okay, it voluntarily adhere to the system of the students. It seems like brushing our teeth every day. Okay, it seems like taking a bath every day. Okay, it becomes a habit. Without doing it, it seems like we are incomplete. Same goes with um, a routinary practice of our students by teaching them simple courtesies. And read or assign books. So these things, we're going to let our students read or assign books, but make sure that the books model the character, the character that we want to achieve of our students. Like our goal is that to teach them interpersonal skills. So the character of that book should model the goal that we want to acquire to our students. Okay, then play games. Playing games is one of the activity that could improve the interpersonal skills to our students. Okay, without knowing it, they gradually develop interpersonal skills. So they're having fun at the same time we're developing their interpersonal skills. We're doing it so. Okay, and the third one would be disciplining student fairly. Of course, some disruptive behaviors may lead into or may lead teachers to discipline them for them to know that they are doing inappropriate behaviors. But of course, in doing it so, we have to let our students feel that we are not a biased teacher. Okay, as a teacher, it shouldn't be manifested to our action that we are a biased teacher. We are not treating them fairly. Okay, so we have to have this what we call fair treatment of our students, especially the students who have the disruptive behaviors, because it may affect to their behavior as well. So this time, it's going to be the implication or the educational implication of the exceptional learners or exceptional children. So, when in fact, educational implication doesn't only limited to teachers, but also to administrators, policymakers, stakeholders, parents, students, etc. But of course, in this presentation, I'm primarily focused on the teachers. Okay, the teachers in the classroom should have the ability to first take advantage of child's individual's interests. Okay, and use their internal motivation for developing required skills. Excuse me. Okay, so this is gonna be a self-explanatory statement. So a child can learn easily if it's in line to their interest. So we have to figure out first as a teacher their interest so that they can have their internal motivation or intrinsic motivation, motivation within themselves. Okay, so in order for them to what develop the required skills um, that is assigned to them or that is tasked to them. Set high in alternative expectations that are suitable for the students. Okay, so of course we have to set high expectations, high and alternative expectation. Why? Because we're dealing students with exceptionalities. Okay, so we have to develop alternative assessment because if we're just going to set expectation for the average students, how about those low and above average students? Low students and above average students. So we really have to have this what we call alternative assessment for us to cater not only the average students but all the students that we have in our classroom. Okay, so make appropriate expectation for each student regardless of the student's capability. All right, so this pertain to inclusive. Okay, make appropriate expectations for each student regardless of the student's capabilities, whether it is a high achiever or low achiever in the upper group or in the lower group. We have to make appropriate expectations. Okay, so that the students will not feel that, again, as I've mentioned earlier, that there's gonna be no bias on giving treatment to your students. Learn how to value all kinds of skills that students bring to a class, not just the academic skills. So this is something to do with the holistic development of the students. Okay, academic skills alone would be worthless without the emotional and the spiritual and also the intellectual skills of the students. So it should be the holistic development of the students. We're not, as a teachers, we're not only focused on the academic skills, but instead the holistic development of the students for optimum learning development. So the next slide would be accommodate to students different learning styles and rate of learning with the help of different teaching method. Of course, so this is in line also with the theory of Howard Gardner, the multiple intelligences. So diverse students needs a diverse or a varied teaching strategies. Okay, because different learners need different um, learning strategies or teaching strategies, and also the rate of the learning. So when we say rate of the learning, so some learners, oh, it pertains to fast or slow pacing of the students. So some students learn fast, some students learn slow. So we have to know their pacing as well, their rate of learning. But of course, with the help of different teaching method. So this teaching method is not only limited to collaborative approach, peer tutoring, individualized instruction, and thematic teaching. So those are the teaching method that can accommodate a student's different learning styles and rate. Identify and overcome barriers to learn. As what I have mentioned earlier, that we have to identify the root cause of the problem, because it would be difficult for us to overcome or give remediation or to rectify some issues if we're not able to identify the problem first. But of course, the most ideal thing to this one is the last resort would be for home visitation, so that we can uh, get information that can link to the difficulties of the students to learn. So upon identifying that one, create a systematic system that could cater the difficulties and the deficiencies of the students in order for us to break the barriers and the students to learn. That's it. So now let's continue to the next slides. So consult with and develop partnership with partners, parents rather, caregivers, and colleges. Of course, this is in line also with, if we can still remember the NCBTS, the National Competency-Based Teacher Standards, primarily on Domain 6, community linkages. So we have to maintain communication and partnership with the parents, caregivers, and colleges. Of course, to discuss on something and to have an open communication and to identify problems encountered and provide solution to the problems that has encountered. Use appropriate forms of assessment. So this time, as a teacher, we all know the different types or forms of assessment. So, but of course, if it's before the instruction, so it's gonna be diagnostic or prognostic. Then during the course of instruction, it's gonna be formative, and after the unit or the chapter, or after the end of the quarters, it's gonna be summative. So we have to know when to use appropriate forms of assessment or types of assessment. Adapt their instruction to the prior knowledge and belief of the students. Of course, the students would easily understand if they're going to use their prior knowledge, like um, in line with the constructivist approach. Okay, you're giving tasks the students, or you're giving tasks the students to unlock the new task by using their prior knowledge. So it would be um, it would be ideal for the students to learn better if they're using their prior knowledge and connect that dots to the current situation that they encounter. Okay, the last would be seek to enhance self-esteem of the students. Again, as a teacher, we have to have this what we call welcoming atmosphere, and we have to welcome all the possible questions, or if our students needs our help, or our students need our help, so we have to have that open arms for them to help. Okay, so we have to show that we are always willing to help with them, because if that characteristic that we have is not shown to them, it would somehow diminish their self-esteem, and at the same time, the students would lead into lack of interest to learn. So we, as a teacher, we are the primary factor as well to let our students enhance and improve their self-esteem, because self-esteem is one of the factor that can make or break to the learning achievement of the students. So all students can learn. But of course, all students can learn. So these are the exceptional children. And before I'm gonna end this presentation, so let me share to you the quotation from George Evans. So let me read to you. Every student can learn, just not on the same day, not just on the same day or in the same way. That was according to George Evans. So what does it means? So it's not that students don't want to learn. They are just not being taught in a way that they can learn. So that concludes our discussion for this video presentation. So if you have additional inputs or suggestion or comments, don't hesitate to drop your message on the comment section. And once again, this has been Jo. Have a great day, everyone, and see you on the other side.